The Utah Utes have turned into an absolute juggernaut, but how did they get to this point after the BYU loss? We're breaking it down on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen and view of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. First time listening to our show, make sure you like and subscribe. And a huge shout out to our everydayers who do make us your first listen of the day. Today's show is brought to you by our great friends at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app you can download today. My name is JT Wistrcill, excited to be joined by the head of Ute Nation, Alex Markham, kind enough to join me here. Alex, we're going to talk about some recruiting. We'll talk about Kyle Whittingham's future, what's going on there, but absolutely have to start with what changed with this Utah team from the BYU game, because it is fascinating what has happened since. You look at, they lose to BYU and their last two games. You beat Colorado 53-7, then you beat a Cincinnati 45-14. I really believe it's not a massive change. It's just a simple fact that this is one of the best offensive lines in college football, and when they can overwhelm you, and then on the other side of the ball, when you have a defensive coordinator like Morgan Scalley and the athletes Utah does, and they can send blitzes and hold up in coverage the way they do, games are going to get out of hand, especially when they're at night in Salt Lake City. But do you feel like you've seen a major shift from this team post BYU?
Juggernaut, buddy. I mean,
what?
Dude, they're a Utah team that has beat everybody but Texas Tech and BYU, right? Yeah, I mean, juggernaut. I mean, in their wins, they're juggernauts.
Yeah,
you know,
that's a good win. Hey, let's not. Hey, that's a good Cincinnati win. That's a good Cincinnati
win.
Teams
that not throw deep balls be considered juggernauts?
That's
I mean,
fair.
there's so many things to it, man. That it's like there's certain little things missing with this team that I couldn't call them a juggernaut, but I'd call them a really damn good team that could beat any team on any given day, as long as you don't follow the analytics and you kick a field goal when the score is 0-0 to get up, right? And get on somebody, and then the pressure's on them with the type of defense you have. Yeah, I mean, so not a juggernaut, but is Utah probably the one Big 12 team that can run with any team in the country? Yeah. I would say that.
Over Tech?
What's up?
You said over the one Big 12 team. That means you're putting them over Texas Tech.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and watch me get clipped by you guys' faithful Big 12 listeners, right? But no, I mean, look, when it comes down to it, I mean, Tech beat Utah fair and square, right? They did. That was a hell of a showing by Tech. You know, Utah was beating the hell out of their starting quarterback, knocked him out of the game. Then they're not ready for the backup, who was a very good backup, right? And then you have Devin Dampier, who I've been told was probably just barely above 50% for that game. Yeah. Out there playing, when you have a Bird Ficklin backing him up, and you saw what Bird Ficklin has been able to do when he's had the opportunities, right? So, yeah, I mean, Tech's a good team. We'll see how they do against BYU's defense, because I know you fans don't want to hear this. BYU's got a really damn good defense, and that was as much of a reason for Utah losing that holy war than Kyle's analytical. I'll call it blunders. It was, you know, plenty of people have had issues with it, but you know, it's you know, how the ball rolls, how the ball bounces, you know, in seasons. And, you know, sometimes you could have one of the best teams in school history and, you know, you're sitting there with two losses, you know, so
it sounds like you don't think anything's changed with this team. You just think they're just not playing teams that are Texas Tech, BYU caliber, and they are taking care of business.
Yeah. Well, you know what? So, I mean, here, like, I'll answer that more. So, I mean, I kind of went off on your juggernaut comment, right? So that kind of sent me down a rabbit hole.
Well, they really have juggernauts all over the offensive line, though. We could say that.
yeah. You know, so what's changed with this team is, okay, first off, I was worried that it could go the other way after the BYU game, right? You just don't know what's going on behind those doors and everything. Kyle does a very good job of keeping that clamped down as much as possible. Every once in a while we hear things, right? But you know, they dug deep. They came to play. They knew that their season wasn't over, especially when you've got a 12-team playoff as opposed to a 4. That's a big difference. It's a big deal that, you can get down in the dumps for a second, but then realize, like, look, like, we've still got a lot to play for, right? So just from there, I mean, it was more about finding more of an identity and getting pissed off. I mean, the way that the defense has responded since has been absolutely phenomenal. The offense is doing what the offense has done when Devin Dampier has been healthy, or out of the lineup. And that's not a slam on him on that part. It's just Bird is a very capable quarterback, right? To the point where, again, it's like you sit back and you say, okay, how different would Utah's season be had they just ran with Bird against Texas Tech? I get why they didn't at that time.
Whoa, really? You think?
You look what he did. Look what he did to Colorado. Okay, look what he goes in and does in that series against Cincinnati. The guy has the it factor, if you ask me. Right? Is there a QB1 controversy? No, but at the same time too, and this is something that, like, on my Ute Nation podcast that we do, Josh Nurse, one of the friends of your show, right, and Zach Moss, we had a conversation where it's like, okay, what percent Dampier is okay to still run out there, like the lowest percent, right? Before you start figuring in, okay, 100% Bird or a 95% Bird is better to have out there than, say, an 85% Devin Dampier. Okay. Because when it comes down to it, I mean, you look back at that Texas Tech game, he's trying to run all game. He can't do it because it's no secret. It was his ankle, right? And so when he's a good passer but doesn't have a deep ball and he's limited because of that, and his best asset is his legs, an 85% Devin Dampier, is that really 85% of a QB1, right? And are you comfortable enough sending that out there as opposed to a kid that has proven himself? And at that time, again, he hadn't had the crazy, like, pressure game reps to prove himself. So I get that to an extent, right? But that's the good dilemma that Utah has now, where it's like, if God forbid Devin gets dinged up again, you have somebody that, you're not going to hesitate to roll out there. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's just the guys have stepped up. There's guys that weren't trusted as much early in the season. Like you look at Creed Whitmore, right?
Yeah. Wow, what a play last week.
Himself. Yeah. And Mana, hey, I've got to shout out Mana, because that punt return against BYU was brutal, right? It was. There's no way to sugarcoat it, explain it, any of that stuff, right? But for him to come back and get that little bit of taste of success right before that big one, right? And it's like, I looked at everybody I was sitting by, because I was up in the stands as opposed to the booth. I had my guy Sam up in the booth. I had Matt up in the booth, actually. And I just said to everybody, I was like, this next one, I think he's busting a big one coming up, because he just needed that confidence. And you could tell that he had it. And so that's another weapon for Utah. Now Utah's got all three phases of the game clicking, and the punting is looking a lot better. It's still not perfect, and they've got to figure ways to, build that faith and that confidence in Curtis as well. But it's everything just seems to be clicking now, but not juggernaut wise.
That's a great, you make an interesting comment saying not juggernaut, but some of the things we talked about. There are concerns with this team. How concerning are they? And what's going on with Utah recruiting? We're breaking it down in one moment. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our great friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. How great is it to have not just the NBA back, college basketball, college football, and the NFL NFL continue to roll on. And it's been a fascinating NBA season so far. We've seen the Thunder continue to keep up too, but there's always those surprise teams that emerge and disappoint too, like the Pelicans. What's going on down there? How's the season going to shape out for the Jazz? You can find out when you watch and get to play along with the action using FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get 300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up today and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Alex, I do still believe in a lot of ways this Utah team is a juggernaut. They are one of just 4 teams in college football, offensively and defensively, in the top 12. But they've, as good as they've been in some areas, they clearly have flaws, hence why they have lost 2 games. Now, we both feel like Utah would love to see both of the teams they have 2 losses to. We've said that before too. So this team is playing their best ball at the right time. But they do have some flaws that can hurt them. The lack of an explosive pass game. I'd even say a little bit the defensive tackle, just the weight isn't there, and I don't think the experience is there amongst all of them against the best rushing teams of BYU, a Tech. That would concern me a little bit. What concerns do you have about a Utah team if they were to see one of the conference's premier teams, if things fell the right way, and they were to get to the Big 12 title game?
You know, a few weeks ago, I would have said safety, but now that Benny has kind of been moved, now that Benny's been moved back to more his natural position, along with Teo, I think it's a lot more secured. So I think that that's one of the areas where you're seeing the defense just lock down that much more as well, right? Yeah, defensively, I mean, defensive tackle, my concern is it just needs to be consistent, right? Because it seems like it's always had like one starter out at least for the majority of the games, and that's tough to get that consistency, especially when it's newer guys that have a lot of potential, but you just don't know. There's not that stability on what's going to be going on from a week to week basis, right? And it's easier said than done when 2 of them are true freshmen, right?
Yeah.
I would have said cornerback. Okay, now you look at the Cincinnati game, and 11 for 33, man.
Yeah.
The big one that he hit, that 88-yarder. If you like, for the ones that were at the game after Snowden had got that interception and fumbled the ball, he was limping a little bit to the locker room at halftime, right? And so I doubt that it's going to be something that's going to nag him very long, and it's a good time that the bye week came when it did, right? But I mean, boom, they go in his area and hit that 88-yarder, and so everybody from that point on had just stepped up. Smith wasn't able to play as much anymore, and the other guys stepped up. Sanders was phenomenal. You look at Cotton is turned into lockdown, right? And
Amazing.
You never really hear anything about Scooby because they're not throwing his way very much. And I know that you're asking me the concerns, right? But I'm giving you what I thought were the concerns. And again, I'm not calling it a juggernaut, JT. I'm not using your words. So, but offensively, yeah, I mean, definitely the deep ball. Zach and I have harped on it all season on our podcast, and it's not there. I asked him, Zach, man, like our topic of the season, does Utah now have a deep ball? He's like, no, man, they don't have a deep ball. He's like, they're not going to have a deep ball until next year. So it doesn't change overnight, and I mean, they did a good job with some of the deep shots with keeping them honest, right? So they at least did that. But yeah, deep ball is a gigantic concern, I cringe every time that ball gets floated up by him and it just floats and it hits that point and it just hangs and it's just ripe for the safeties to pick. And I had said, I was like, it's going to come a crucial game, at a very crucial time, and it's going to bite him. And I even said at the time, I was like, I'm not going to be surprised if it's BYU. What happened against BYU? Yep. Concerns. Yeah, man. I mean, wide receiver. That's something that is showing signs.
Ryan Davis.
It needs consistency. Ryan Davis is one of the best receivers that Utah's had in a while. And I was not expecting that. Like, I knew he'd be solid. But yeah, I've been so floored with him and just his leadership too. Like when he talked about his moment that he had with Mana after he fumbled that ball and said like, "Hey, there's going to come a moment and it's going to be yours and they're going to love you." And it was the coolest soundbite. That he's going to be a great football coach one day. But yeah, and then Whitmore breaking out as long as he hangs on to the ball in practice. Somebody so electric like him wasn't seeing the field, and then they've moved JJ Buchanan. I mean, he still gets mentioned at tight end, but they've primarily moved him to wide receiver.
Yeah, he don't block.
Yeah, so it's getting refined, it's getting better. The one area that I like what I'm seeing, but I need to see it with the other person is, man, Simmons is a baller. The catches he makes,
I know,
but the rapport that he has with Bird compared to the rapport that he has with Devin, dude.
Well, he only made what, 2 catches with Bird though? Didn't he only make 2 catches with Bird?
I can't remember, but you remember seeing those catches, right?
Yes, they were 2 big catches, but yeah, I don't think it was a ton either. It's just the Utah's had trouble getting those outside receivers going this year.
But they hadn't thrown to him that much before that game either, and so there's just this rapport with him and Bird, and maybe the more Bird throws the ball around, maybe Bird throws the guys open better. And again, I'm saying this, Devin is QB1. Devin is far and away QB1, right? There is no quarterback controversy, but there's these little things with Ficklin that are just so intriguing, that it's going to be an interesting conversation when the off season hits.
Really?
And having to figure everything out with keeping them, So
why?
Because I know Ficklin was his agent was approached by a couple other Big 12 schools right after spring ball last year, right? And so there's going to be a market for him, and so that's always going to be a cause for concern, and the fact that he's done as well as he has in his limited time as a freshman, right? And then you just don't know who else is going to come after Dampier, right? Like this is the time around this time each year is the time where I shouldn't say necessarily schools. Some schools will do it. Some schools will be this way. And I'm not going the route that you think I'm going.
Not even the one, yeah.
But like, third parties reaching out to agents, whatever, right? Where they're starting to reach out and say like, hey, we have this interest. This is what we can kind of do. What's up? What's going on, right? I've heard that there's some big level interest in Dampier, and so again, it's going to be, man, it's crazy where you sit back and say college free agency, right?
Yeah.
When it's like the guy's maybe not even necessarily a free agent in the portal. so it's a unique time. But yeah, I mean, concerns, circling back, me, I can go squirrel all the time. So concerns, man, I mean, yeah, there's concerns, but there's enough out there to show positive signs that are intriguing to sit back and say, well, God, if Utah gets into that championship game, like they were able to do when their backs were against the wall the 2 Rose Bowl years, who knows what could go on, right? Here's a thing for you to ponder too, man. I put this out on Twitter the other day, and see, I'm kind of hijacking your show a little bit. I'm sorry, dude.
It's all good. It's all good. It's all good. If it wasn't good, I would have cut you off by now, Alex.
Conversations, man. I don't want to get grilled by JT. I just like the conversations.
But we're talking about Bird Ficklin. That was an incredible find for Utah recruiting. Speaking of Utah recruiting, Alex, the 2026 cycle continues to roll on. You get a guy like LaMarcus Bell, all of a sudden he's getting an Oregon offer. Last week, Utah flips the Minnesota tackle. He's from Lehigh, but he was in Minnesota. Now he's coming to Utah. Feels like there's been some positive recent trends overall. I don't love Bam getting the Oregon offer, but overall, he went to Utah. He tweeted out something about Utah recently. Still feels like we're okay there. What do you find interesting on the recruiting trail? You just mentioned the transfer portal stuff. Like, we are not far away from portal season, from guys signing officially too. There's a lot coming up in Utah recruiting world.
Yeah. I mean, you want to keep your guys from flipping,
Mhm.
at the same time too, you want to flip guys because it's not the best recruiting class Utah's had. They've done good in positions of need, right? Especially wide receiver. Now you got to keep them because there's been a talk that like the Pula twins, for instance, were in BYU's locker room
Mm.
after they beat Utah. So it's like, well,
Wow.
what's going on with that? And so a lot of unique dynamics, holding on to your guys right before. And like I said, trying to flip. Now, with that, when it comes down to that, there's never going to be anybody that I'll give you from a flip standpoint to watch out because I know the program's pretty guarded by that.
Mhm.
And rightfully so. Now, the one thing I will say is there is an under the radar offer that was out recently. It's a JUCO kid, okay, late bloomer. I know they love the guy. I would say but my take on it from everything that I've been told and heard from a few different angles is when he commits,
Mhm.
um, that could really kind of help stem the tide on some things with the team that Utah is going up against
Mm.
frequently. Okay. And be able to get some key quality talent. And I'm being very careful on this
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
for several reasons, right? It's not that I just have my sight and I'm trying to withhold because I mean, me, I've been pretty open with you over the
Mhm.
years on the stuff, right? But you know, it's stuff I can talk about more when it goes down. But yeah, this is something that I've got my finger on that I'm very, very intrigued to see when this goes down, just exactly the extent
Mhm.
of positivity that could come out of this from a domino effect.
Yeah, that's okay. It's going to be really interesting to see what that ends up being then. Utah always does a good job staying aggressive with recruits. They've had a lot of really talented players up for visits here recently. I like the class they're assembling in 2026, but that does lead me to my next question. Do we think Kyle Whittingham is going to be coaching in 2026? Because nothing about the way he sounds in his press conferences or he's approached this season has felt like a farewell tour. Last year felt like a farewell tour. You were on this show, Alex, in the offseason and said it was supposed to be Kyle's final year last year, and things changed with how off the rails it's gotten. Well,
Yeah.
I'm sitting here right now. Look, maybe if Utah does get in the Big 12 title game race somehow, they win it. And then Kyle's like, you know what? This feels like a good point to exit stage left. But let's also remember back when Kyle Whittingham was talking about that, Las Vegas Bowl, or not Las Vegas Bowl, but that opener against Miami, he was talking about in 27, he probably won't be in this chair. So he never has even said, like, oh, yeah, I'd retire before 26. He sounds like a guy who might coach in 26 right now. And if I had to lean one way or another, I might even lean towards him coming back in 2026. Where are you right now at who will be Utah's head coach next year as we sit here in the midst of a bye week in the middle of the 25 season?
I mean, I'm still going to go Morgan Scalley.
Mhm.
When it comes down to it, look, I've said it on the show before. Kyle's a legend. Kyle gets to go when he wants to go.
Yeah.
You're not going to force out a legend. Now, at the same time, too, I mean, I mentioned to you guys last year, the team was made aware week 4 last year that it was his last year.
Mhm.
And then it ended up, backtracking, which anybody can backtrack. Anybody has the right to backtrack, right? But that was the assumption. That was the plan. You know, what I've been told, just through different contacts and everything is that, this is fully expected to be Kyle's last year.
Mhm.
That's the assumption that I've gone and ran with. They have done things behind the scenes on a very smooth transition bridge between him and Morgan, especially with when it comes to the guys with like the future of the program and stuff like that, player wise and so on and so forth. And so there's really not a concern. Um, if it does end up being his last year or if he goes one more. The concern is going to end up starting to be um, if Kyle stays, how much longer can Morgan sit back and be the good soldier
Yeah.
and keep going along for the ride? Because Morgan's going to be wanted this year.
For
And
what?
so
Wanted for what?
he'll, I will be surprised if he's not in the thick of it as a finalist for other head coaching jobs if Kyle does not retire.
What
Okay.
level though?
If
What
Kyle,
level? Like, I don't know if he's going to be up for P4 jobs, right?
I could see. Yeah, I mean, I could see low level P4.
Oh, you could. Okay, interesting.
I could.
That
could
would make sense then.
I mean, I know Oklahoma State likes him. They're not gonna take him. They're not gonna take him. I would assume that they're gonna take somebody more, within the oil country area, right? But Morgan is highly respected, and just the fact that everybody highly respects Kyle, and when he has his handpicked successor, and if it continues on that, it's that he's got to do another year as a DC, then those teams are going to see that it's ripe for the picking and take somebody that they might know that they'll probably have like maybe a couple years of growing pains, and then it's off, right? Like it is just send off. I mean, Morgan was more than capable of being a head coach 3 to 4 years ago.
Yeah. So
yeah, it's interesting, man, because if you would have asked me right after the BYU game, Kyle's done.
Yeah,
absolutely done. Especially after the comment that he made where he kind of one up the guy pretty quick on, well, you've lost 3 straight, so does that? Well, I mean, I also won 9 straight.
Yeah, that's what we're really thinking about right now.
But yeah, there's things that like I'll hear just from a mood standpoint behind the scenes sometimes that I'm not going to talk about necessarily right off the bat or ever. And this time right off the bat, it was interesting, right? Because started hearing some stuff thinking like, okay, maybe this is going to go south. But then it picked up fast. They righted the ship fast. And so my thought on that, thinking like, okay, yeah, Kyle's definitely done, it immediately changed. Now all of a sudden you've got this stuff where they're riding high and the JT's quote unquote juggernaut. I'm not gonna have that clipped with my name on it. And showing all these signs, right? And who knows if Utah goes 10-2, misses the championship game, but everything's riding high, and all of a sudden Utah suddenly has an offense that excites Kyle, and it's like, oh my God, well, if I just beef up this and this with it, like I can go to the playoffs next year, right? At one point it's gotta where it did with McBride, and I'm not saying like Kyle's gonna go out when Kyle wants to go out. Okay. So it's not like McBride, but like McBride hit a point where he plateaued. Okay. And the only way Utah was going to reach that next level is if they were smart with who they hired as the next person. Utah did that, right? Okay. Has Utah plateaued? I'm not saying they have, but has Utah plateaued? With that, is Utah going to have the right succession plan going forward and hire the right guy? Kyle believes that they have that in place. Some of that's up to him where he wants to look at that and look at his legacy too. Because if he stays another year, like I said, it's that much more highly likely that Scalley will go elsewhere. And if the opportunity presents itself, obviously, which there are going to be options out there, right? And then what does Whittingham have to sit back and look at his legacy? Is he going to need to coach another 5 years and then, and then groom his next quote unquote Scalley, And so it's not an easy answer. It's not an easy thing for Kyle to sit back and just come to a conclusion on either. So it's going to be really, really interesting in over the next month here.
I'm surprised you've pushed back so hard on Juggernaut. This team is playing like a top 15 team in the country right now. Several power ratings. Wait. You've talked the whole show. Can I get a word in? Can I get a dang word in, Mr. Markham? Can I get a word in? This team is power ratings wise above BYU in so many things right now. Their point differential is one of the best in college football. In a lot of ways right now, they are playing like a juggernaut to me. They are annihilating these teams they're playing right now, Alex, right?
Juggernauts aren't, what are they, 7-2, 8-2?
Yeah, I'm just talking about what they look like right now.
Juggernauts aren't 7-2, JT.
I know, but you're the one talking about they could beat Tech and BYU too.
When Utah goes to the Big 12 championship game and they play BYU, what's the percentage going to be crowd-wise?
Crowd-wise? Well, it's in Arlington. What? Probably still more BYU than Utah. What do you think?
I mean,
Oh
yeah,
my gosh, you trying to get me to say one of those?
I would say 65-35 BYU. I would, and I'm not slamming Ute fans on that. Like this has been a big season for BYU. Let's be real, they do have a bigger fan base,
Absolutely.
and it's more national, so that's not a slam on Utah.
Alex, please let everyone know where they can find more of your work at.
Absolutely, man. God, dude, I could talk to you on this forever, man. I always appreciate you, bud.
Appreciate you.
So doing more of an independent thing now because I'm working on a few other projects on the side that I'm going to be hopefully getting out within the next 6 to 12 months. But, same utenation.com platform, same utenation.com, a little bit of a different platform. We're doing a promo right now, man. So thank you for asking me about it. It's all caps Ute 50. Head on over there, just for some great info. Got a great staff. If you go over to YouTube and look up Utah Utes at Ute Nation or just the Ute Nation podcast, a lot of great things going on with that.
Alex, really appreciate you coming on. Make sure you guys give him a follow on X as well. Thanks, Alex. Appreciate you. That's going to do it for today's Locked On Utes. Be back with you tomorrow talking more about Utah as they rev up for Baylor in 2 weeks and continue to get better during the bye. We'll see you then.